I'm here today to talk a little bit about one of the things I believe in a lot, which I think that immersive or mixed reality is kind of becoming the future of humanity as we get closer to our digital selves and our digital worlds and as they blend in. And I'll talk about the journey that I've been on to go there and some of the future gazing that I think could be really interesting for you guys and actually for everybody. I grew up in an alternative reality. This was me carrying my little brother, and I was part of the New Age Traveller group in the early 80s. So I lived in a bus till I was 10, very Glastonbury Greenpeace. Thatcher really didn't like my parents being around, and so it was a tricky reality to live in, but it was wonderful because this was school with my Uncle Benji, who's not my uncle at all, and he's definitely not a clown, but that's me in the middle. And in fact, one of the girls here is head of marketing for Paramount at the moment, so you'd never know where you're going to end up. But this was the world I brought in. Music, festivals, arts, this is my uncle. He got married in full punk and made national press. He's now the head librarian at the UN International School, as you do. And then I became a lecturer for 12 years teaching animation and visual effects. And then I thought of start a business because how hard can it be? Pretty damn hard. And I've got this lucky bunch, this lovely group of creatives, and we're creating all kinds of interesting content. I class this as an immersive production studio now. We create apps and games and experiences. Some live online, some live on devices, some live on glasses that you wear, including shooting this amazing backflip of a guy over a Formula E car, shot in Mexico for various reasons. And we've won a whole bunch of awards. Very luckily this year we won the Beamer Dynamic Business of the Year, which I'm very proud of, and a whole bunch of other ones, which we had to actually reinforce our shelf because it got too heavy, which is a lovely thing to say when clients come over. And we saw the showreel a second ago. We don't need to play it again, do we? We'll just skip past. So the types of things, we did Ghost in the Shell for Paramount, so we made a VR version of that big Hollywood blockbuster with Scarlett Johansson. We launched Jaguar's electric car, all in virtual reality, and use virtual reality to take people to another world. Let them sit in this vehicle, let them be particles within inside the engine and go to space and anywhere beyond. But it really was theatre, so it's 45 minutes of using a theatrical space which was infinite and infinitely changeable. We've started using mixed reality, and we'll talk about this a lot today, as a headset, and this was for Red Bull Air Race, where with the headset on, we can bring the race into your living room and into your world and bring the two together. And then for The Apprentice, we were actually the company behind the VR episode last year, which was a difficult thing to do, probably our toughest clients, as we were told we couldn't help them. In fact, we had to do exactly what they said. And so midway through the afternoon, when I went to the producers and I said, this is terrible, their games are terrible, it's never going to work. He said, he looked at me and went, oh, I know, it's brilliant. It's a reality TV show, got it. So I run Rewind. I'm also chair of BAFTA's Immersive Entertainment Group, and I look after Immerse UK, so very much embedded within the space. Mixed reality. It's a new medium. I think it humanizes and connects us with technology like never before. We are slowly edging our way towards that with our mobile phones. But in one end of the continuum, mixed reality, XR, immersive, whatever you want to call it, you've got RR, so real reality, physical reality that we're in now. You start augmenting it with technology, so things like Pokemon Go. You get into the meat of mixed, where you're using your device or a head-mounted display, and then you're off going into fully virtual. So as you replace the world around you, instead of adding an object into your world, you're creating the entire world. You're creating virtual reality, where the whole world is completely digital. And for me, it's kind of takes us beyond storytelling. We've been sitting around campfires and telling each other stories, and we're having to imagine the world in our mind's eye. Then we started painting pictures on cave walls to help us see the things we're trying to talk about, and that led us on to doing paintings and photography and video. So we've always been trying to show people our imaginations in some ways. With VR, we're going, and with immersive, we're going to something that I've coined story living. So we are not just telling a story, we're actually living it, we're being part of it, we're engaged with it in like never before. Within that, we created a piece for the BBC 3 years ago now, which allowed you to go to space. You put a headset on completely virtually, and you are now on the International Space Station climbing around, doing one of Tim Peake's missions. and this is Tim, and this is a 12-year-old version of me, and a real NASA astronaut called Nicole Stutt. And when I put her into it, she said it's as close to the real thing as you can get. And there aren't that many astronauts, so I was kind of proud that we actually got that right. But she also said she'd never thought she'd get to go back to space. And using this, she felt like she was there again. In fact, that's her doing one of the missions floating around. So VR took them there. So completely virtual worlds can be replaced and give you something special. But once we start moving beyond virtual and into augmented reality or mixed reality, we get some really interesting things happening. So this was the Tupac hologram 4 or 5 years ago now. And this was Pepper's Ghost. Holograms don't exist. They don't appear in the middle of air. They have to be displayed on some sort of screen. Normally it's a one-way mirror or a very thin piece of silk in this case. And they did an amazing job. Fast forward a few years, we get things like this. So this is the League of Legends eSport. So if you don't know about eSports, you soon will. They're about to arrive. And they've used augmented reality to mix into the broadcast. So they've taken an augmented reality asset, put it in and made it so it was live tracked onto the TV cameras so that the TV cameras could see it. But no one in the stadium can see it. But if they had their mobile phone, they could look up and they could look through that. And if they're wearing a pair of glasses, they could see the entire thing like it's real, which is this year's where they did an entirely digital mixed reality K-pop band. So same things, same launch, but they mix the difference between the real band and the digital characters. So the front four are digital, the back set are real people, and using the mixed reality of the TV cameras, knowing where the camera is, they can do live visual effects to bring those characters to life. They were pre-recorded, but they could have been driven by motion capture, they could have been driven by augmented artificial intelligence, and the quality of the real-time graphics is pretty stunning. And this is how they're beginning to talk about bringing back bless her, Amy Winehouse to sing as a hologram throughout the rest of the year. So this sort of technology mixed with the mobile device that's in your pocket. So Apple and Google have really pushed into the space over the last few years, making it easier and easier for us to create AR through the device, through your smartphone. The big one, which probably a few of you played, you don't have to admit it now, it's okay. Some of my team still are. But Pokemon Go put AR characters and gamification in the world around you. So you'd run around the street, finding the Pokemon, collecting them, and some people are still playing it. They're about to make a lot more money to release a thing called Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which will create all of us into wizards, running around, battling, whatever, and having a little Dobby kind of living in our house when we got home.
Immobiles.
They're going to do very well. But that augmented world, what they've done extra there is they've made it geo-locked. So the things exist on the street out there, and when I look there, I see the character, and when you look there, you see the character. So they exist as if they were real objects, but they're only placed there through a lens to see them. We do need another technology to capture AR, and one of the ones that's really being used is called volumetric. So instead of a single camera capturing a world, we use lots of cameras capturing a world, and we create 3D worlds and 3D assets. So this 3D capture of a full stage can exist on my tabletop, or it could exist as if it's a full size and I'm standing in the middle of the Western and the battle. Or we need to capture individual people, and there's a studio called Dimension Studios down in Wimbledon. There's only 3 of them in the world now, where we can capture very high quality, small capture volumes of characters, people, places that we can bring into the world. We just recently did a project with the O2 and the lovely Michael Bublé, where we captured him as augmented reality, as a little asset, and you can, through your device, bring him into your world, bring him into your bar, have a perfect performance with him wherever you like. And in this case, he was asking Gemma from The Office to marry him, which is she was very happy about. He was playing ice hockey in the street, telling you he loved you wherever. But this asset doesn't just live like a video element. It's a 3D, and it's captured, and it's augmented. And once you have that performance, you can make it live in any medium you like. And in this case, it was for them to take selfies to be able to push out onto social media, but it was a really interesting use of AR. The other one we did recently was for a very large conference in LA, we created a conference app, scheduling. Sounds as boring as it sounds. But what we did at the front was we created an AR gallery that as you walked into the space, you could see all of the assets from all of the games and all the experiences as if they were right there in front of them, these digital worlds coming into the physical world. And it had an interesting effect that we went from last year, 32% people used the app, and it was 85% this year. And the average dwell time was 17 minutes. So they had people engaging with their content because it came out into the real world. And we think it's a really good use. Launched this week. Within made this amazing app. Download it if you have an iPhone. It's called Wonderscope. And Wonderscope brings children's stories to life through AR. And they live in your house. And they're as wonderful and as delightful as you can imagine. They've also done a whole bunch of speech recognition so you can talk to the story and it will talk back to you. It's free to download at the moment, and I'm sure they'll start monetizing it very soon. But it's that childhood wonder and bringing it to life. One of the things I thought was interesting is that as children, we can imagine the world being full of dinosaurs just by looking at a tree or running around. But as adults, we lose that. By using AR, we can start to see that imaginary world again. So my friend Ted from Paramount says that we'll forget what it's like using smartphones because we're going to start having devices, wearing devices, having things embedded. They're going to be part of our everyday. And that's where we're just getting a glimpse of it with what mixed reality is now. So we've had some glasses. They weren't very good. The Google Glass had a very bad response. Snapchat, they're hopefully going to release another one very soon. But they needed to put them into the market. You need an evolutionary step to move forward to start creating these devices. The other thing that's going on is that voice is replacing touch. If you haven't had a conversation with Siri recently, she completely understands what you're saying, almost perfectly. Last year she was 68% accurate. This year she's 96% accurate because of machine learning and time. I can have a conversation with her, and she'll write it out as an email for me. So that sort of stuff is going to become more and more prevalent. These wonderful earbuds with Google Translate allows me to have a conversation with someone in another language. It translates what they hear to French. They speak French. It translates that French to English. And it's almost immediate. So these technologies applied to, this was me trying my HoloLens on the way back from LA recently. It was fine until this guy woke up and he was very confused. But it totally worked. You can create other worlds. So AR is looking through a device. Mixed reality is looking through a head-mounted set of glasses, which allows us to overlay digital objects, assets, and realities as if they are real in our real world. This was an old demonstration for HoloLens, and this was maybe 4 years ago. And I saw this and I thought, this must be all fake, because I can do visual effects. But every single demo in this worked, and it had some real profound impact on me. I mean, if we just take that one use case, so in this case, you can see digital assets, you can put them onto your bike and see how that works there. You can have a Skype call with the person as if they're in the office with you. You can play Minecraft, you can go to Mars, or this use case where my dad can draw on the taps and the pipes and tell me what to do in my house, and I can see it as if it's real. The main one for me is this one just here. So if I can put a screen onto any surface of any resolution, of any size, how the hell are they ever going to sell me a television again? LG, Samsung, Sony are going to have to stop making these boxes. And you start chipping away at what mixed reality is going to have an impact on, and you realize it's everything. Everything we do in every day will be changed by having a digital layer connected to it. So the Mighty Magic Leap came out this summer. They're a $4 billion startup. They were very stealthy until recently. They made these glasses, which are an evolutionary step from HoloLens. Brought out some amazing games. So this is Angry Birds. And the Angry Birds world lives as if it's sitting in your living room. But because you're wearing glasses and your hands free and you can move around and you're not tethered to anything, it always sits there. And if I go into another room and I come back, the stuff is exactly where I left it. So it's always in the same space. So in my house, I've got a game of Angry Birds, I've got a cookery book in my kitchen, I've got Netflix sitting on one of my walls, and I've got a galaxy floating around in my bedroom. And I remember it as if there was a real galaxy there because I saw it. It's the same way as if you close your eyes right now, the world still exists to you. You've built a digital map. So they've created some other interesting tech. This was a demo they launched. I have a completely synthetic human called Mika. And Mika is the other side of the uncanny valley. She's very believable, especially in headset. And they're trying to work out how to drive her with artificial intelligence so that she reacts to you. The demo I saw, she was standing in front of me. I walked closer, and she kind of took offense to how close I was got and actually walked off and disappeared and shut a door. And I was like, what did I do wrong? He said, you got in her personal space. I was like, I just never have had a moment where a digital character has been upset with me. Okay, so this is going to change things. And then these guys, that loading bar is getting fuller and fuller. Obviously, this wasn't what we expected the iPhone X to kind of lead on. But in all reality, what they've done is put a device in our pocket which has all the power for mixed reality. They're doing augmented, they're making it gentle, they're making an ecosystem, we're all making apps for it, and they're doing lots of big patents, and at some point, something will come out. I have no NDAs with them, so this is me just guessing. I'll eat a fruit-based hat if something doesn't happen pretty soon. But if you start looking at what Magic Leap have said about the Magiverse, so these are the layers, they call it. So verses, Magiverses. Each layer is a digital layer that you can turn on and turn off when you need it. Sometimes it's getting me to work. Sometimes it's looking through data. Sometimes it's entertainment where digital characters like Dobby is literally a pet. It lives with me all the time. Or it could be just finding my way to work. There is a worry that we end up here. So this is a film called Hyperreality. Do look it up on YouTube. It's a little scary. But if we have all these layers all of the time, then maybe we end up being completely advertised to all the time. It's horrible. I always say that we're never going to end up here just because there are too many smart people in the world. Admittedly, we've said that about most of the social media stuff, and we're having to have a pushback on it. But it could get scary. But last thing to leave you on is, this is a tech demo of a company called Leap Motion. So I've said a few times that I think the mobile phone's dead and it doesn't know it yet. Why do I need a silicon in my pocket? Why do I need graphics cards and a screen when all I need to know is where I want that screen to exist? In this case, I'm tracking a hand, and that then has a screen augmented on it. Or why do I need a laptop? Why do I need a laptop screen or any of that sort of stuff when any surface and anywhere can pull a screen out of it and place it into it? So it's going to change just fundamental small things, which will then trickle into everything else. And that's why I coined this talk to be mixed reality being the future of humanity, is I think that we're already there. We do it in a very clunky way. We have a mobile phone that I talk to my mum on WhatsApp. I don't call her, I don't phone her, I don't see her that often, but we communicate all day, every day. And that's lovely. But what if I could have her here with me? She could sit in the audience wearing her headset, and she could sit there and see my presentation. I could have a conversation if we wanted. Or maybe we didn't want to come to Central London today, and we'll dial in virtually. Those small things are going to change how we live, how we educate, what we need to learn, how we communicate. There is also a problem that if we're not careful, there will be a bigger divide between the have and the have-nots. The haves with the technology, the have-nots without the technology. We already have the first and third world problem, but that's going to expand quickly. So we have to be careful. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. I think it's a really fun place to play, and it's moving far quicker than I think most people are paying attention to. I think you'll see something within the next 3 to 5 years which is really going to blow everybody's minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sol. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Just interested on what you said at the end, and obviously all this is amazing, but do you ever worry about if you can do all the stuff that you just said at the end, have you remember the shift of society where you're kind of like, no one has to ever interact person to person anymore? Do you think about that at your age and stuff? Just out of interest.
I'm not worried. I think some people, the Luddites were very upset with the factories taking over, but change is inevitable. It's going to happen. But if you think about the way that I spend more time communicating with my mother, and I'm really communicating, we're talking all day. We just don't do it physically in that space. But using other technologies, we're actually getting more social. We're engaging people more. Sadly, a lot of that means we were actually communicating in bite-sized chunks and almost like sound bites on most of the social platforms. But I think there's an actual thing that all as humanity wants. We want social interaction. We want to engage more. And technology isn't a boundary to that. We just have to make sure the platforms fit us in the right way. But it's worth raising our hand and saying, be careful.
I just had a question about the 360 capture of the video. Was that with a Lytro camera? Is that what that you showed a camera there? Was that?
That was what a Lytro was going to be. Sadly,
Right.
they've sold out to Google, and who knows what will end up
really?
with their Lightfield tech.
Okay.
But the Lightfield tech is kind of inside out, so that's me being somewhere. The other technology, Dimensions technology, is outside in. So we capture all the way around you, which means we can view you or an object from all sides. Yes, it was a Lytro, apparently.